Well, hello there. How is everyone? You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. This is video 2 of 3. That's because we've got 2 videos and then 2 videos and 1 live later. If you're not subscribed to the channel, if you've not smashed the like button and all that jazz, do it so you don't miss videos. As multiple videos a day over here. Multiple videos a day. I'm like Meals on Wheels, where I come to your house and drop you in some food, like wheeling in on a trolley, like the old people get. Sometimes I don't even know if they do it anymore. Is that a thing? Meals on Wheels? But this is videos on screens. But anyway, what we talked about in this video, Steve Goncalves. In video 1, we looked at the Ashley Banfield interview that he did and really stripped it back, and it was bare bones to what was said, why it was said, the ramifications, potential ramifications of what was said. And in this one, we're looking at the drunk chicken and the interview that was done there and doing a very similar thing, stripping it back, bare bones. Found this link over on Reddit. Going to leave the description of that, or the link to that, or the details of that in the description of this video. But I found that it was real interesting to actually have it so you can look at it, what was said, and try and determine whether this is speculation, whether it's not speculation. And let's get into it. This is, as I said in the last video, this notes on here isn't so much for you, it's for me. But if you have got really good eyes or even a magnifying glass, you can pause the screen and read it yourself. For some reason, I cannot make that bigger. Well, I don't know how to, unless I put it on the other screen, and I don't have the other screen out. Shut up and get on with it, Ash. Right, so Steve Goncalves says Kaylee Goncalves was not in Moscow very much before the murders. States that she was at home most of the time to work, but still had belongings at 1122 King Road. He acknowledged the public information that BK was known to visit the house 23 times, but there is evidence that he was likely there more and that he did not have his phone. So he's suggesting, or made a suggestion, that Bryan Kohberger was visiting the house. So let's make no bones about it. This is suggesting that there is evidence and additional evidence without Bryan Kohberger having his phone on him, which is fucking bizarre, that would seemingly suggest that Bryan Kohberger was at the house. So this is specifically talking about stalking. This is talking about stalking. So the question has to be raised, why, when it has been stated in the courtroom that Bryan Kohberger has no connection to the victims and there is no evidence of stalking, and Dr. Edelman got hauled over the coals for even trying to suggest that that was the thing by both the defense and the prosecution. No. Why is Steve Goncalves still seemingly suggesting that Bryan Kohberger was at the house? Now, we know that it's been raised that Bryan Kohberger was in the area, but Ann Taylor has spoken in the courtroom saying, but you know what he was doing there. You know where he went, how he went, why he went, what he was doing. You know all these things. You know it. It's got nothing to do with the house. You know where he didn't go. And it's even got law enforcement saying that we didn't say that he went to the property. You know, we're not saying that. But he was there. He was in the area. Familiar with the area. He believes that Bryan Kohberger had probably planned to attack another time previously, but something had stopped him, like a party or the company of other people at the house. This house on this particular night had multiple cars out the front of it. Multiple cars out the front of it. So this house, if this was about not knowing who was in the house, unless this person had been to this house multiple times and learned exactly who was in the house, what they were doing, when they were doing. There was even food delivery simultaneously arriving at this house. I can't buy into that so much. I can't. And to say attack another time previously, again, what is this, just speculation, or is there evidence of that? Because if it's speculation, what is the point of even speculating when your very daughter's justice kind of can pivot on what you're suggesting publicly and potential ramifications of doing such things? But again, we touched on that earlier. Markings and damages that made her coroner Kathy Mabbutt, suspect that there was more to what had happened to them in that bedroom, states that Kaylee Goncalves has been punched in the face. We spoke about this in the video earlier today. The injuries basically stated in the Ashley Banfield interview that the injuries sustained just by the beating alone would have been enough without the K-bar, if that makes sense. So trying to stay sort of YouTube friendly to a point. Law enforcement knew by the crime scene that this was planned. So knew this was planned by the crime scene. That's what he's suggesting. So how would the crime scene suggest that this was planned? Because there was only specific rooms attached. So again, when you think that this was, with this feeds back into Steve Goncalves saying they didn't have to go upstairs. So again, are we talking about an attack that was up on the top level, and then as they're coming down, they run into an altercation downstairs because Xana Canodal has come away from the room to go to the DoorDash, but then that'd throw the DoorDash time out. So unless this person entered in this house to specifically target 2 rooms, but then you've got to answer yourself, why these 2 rooms? Why these 2 targets, which would have technically meant that the 2 targets were Madison Mogen and Xana Canodal. You have to ask yourself why. Why these 2 specific girls? And what are their parents doing? Law enforcement said early on that they believe the perp picked this neighborhood, and they wouldn't be surprised if he was hugging the IDWA border. There you go. Very clearly states that all of the information is not out, and that there is stuff that is literally going to blow people's minds. So there is stuff that is going to blow people's minds. So again, this is Steve Goncalves walking that very dangerous line of suggesting that he is privy to information that potentially he is not supposed to be privy to. He can't say it publicly, but what I don't understand, and what someone is going to have to allow me to know, is in terms of the law, when there is a gag order that is covering the lawyers, the legal representation, prosecution, defense, does that extend to not being able to discuss what is happening inside that courtroom and the information under gag with victims' parents? Because I would imagine that is quite a strict thing, that they don't want any of that information going beyond the very people that was involved in the acquisition of the information and those who are privy to the results of it. So again, I have to ask the question again, is there a potential for ramifications here? FBI is very confident in this case, and that they have never seen this much evidence. Steve Goncalves believes that the jury will find him guilty quickly. So never seen this much evidence. So we've seen evidence. This is, I would say that anybody who is talking about the evidence that we have been made privy to publicly, if they would suggest that is never seen this much evidence, then you're insane. So this would suggest that there is a lot more evidence, and we're talking about never seen this much. Can you imagine? This is the FBI saying they've never seen this much evidence before. Now, is this Steve Goncalves confusing the 68 terabytes, whatever it is, as evidence? And that's where he's kind of coming to that conclusion, that much evidence, and making this himself? Or is he being fed information? Again, there's a common thread through both of these interviews that we've spoken about today. Steve Goncalves believes that the jury will find him guilty quickly. And Taylor is desperate, and that she is even using some information that the Goncalves family has found themselves. It doesn't mean that she's using it because you used it. It just means that if you both looked into things, did you both find it out? Confirms that people are writing to BK and putting money on his books. Family is working on a law to prevent these criminals from receiving money and fame after their crimes. Interesting. How would he know that Bryan Kohberger is literally being sent money? Steve Goncalves mentions a Dickies suit many times through the course of the interview. Dickies suit. We've not heard of a Dickies suit, have we? Or have we? Steve Goncalves has spoken with some of the participants of Bryan Kohberger's survey. We spoke about this in the first one. Bryan Kohberger was overly interested in what they had to say and would even call them back to ask more information or follow up on things that they had said. He was specifically focused on how these participants chose their victims. That is because that is what he is majoring in, the psychology side of crime and behavior, not the physical application, the mental application. So that's why he's doing it in the first place. Just because he's got an interest in that and that is what he's majoring in, it doesn't mean that he's a killer. Everybody doing that course has an interest in the minds of how criminals work and this sort of thing. Again, I'm not saying that he's completely innocent of the crime. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it makes me laugh the things that people will talk about to attribute to Bryan Kohberger being a killer. Do you know what I mean? There are many females who are very creeped out and are harassed by Bryan Kohberger. So he's suggesting that many females were very creeped out and or harassed by Bryan Kohberger. Really? So we now find out that obviously the ASD and the effect that can have on social cues. Could that be? And I know, I'm telling you all now that I know that when people have Asperger's, autism, things like that, that can really make those around them feel a certain way. If they don't understand, they don't know, then it can make them flat out not like them. It is something that our own daughter has struggled with throughout her time in school. She has really struggled to obtain and maintain friends, and it's very difficult. So this to me is something that would, it'd be very interesting to dig more deep in there. But again, it's like everything else. I find this very hard to listen to try to utilize that as suggesting that Bryan Kohberger was a bad person and therefore went on to kill because of this. We've not heard one female really come out and say anything about Bryan Kohberger. Could you imagine that would how much money someone could make by going anonymously to one of these places and saying about Bryan Kohberger and what he did? I don't know. There are many females. All right, I've just read that twice. Let's have a look. Rangen discusses the theories about Xanaconodal seeing the door open and saying someone's here. About that, he agreed that this could have been possible, not a fact, just something he has seen that he believes could be possible. Well, the door was seemingly open, and the Goncalves family was one of the people who'd said that door was shut and that Hunter had to go over and force it open. For nearly 2 years, we believed that door was shut, and this whole story around people coming over and having to get into that room, mainly because the Goncalves family pushed that. I have to raise that because that's a fact. That is a falsity that changes the entire feeling of this crime and what happened in the aftermath, that he seems to be happy with, by the way. He doesn't seem to need to question it. Discusses that at least 2 victims drowned by their own injuries. Take that as you will. Steve Goncalves believes he buried the murder weapon, which we spoke about in the previous one, and believes he did so with the intent of going back to it, especially due to the shovel found in BK's car. Steve Goncalves point out that this was a mini shovel with a tip, not a show shovel. Says Dylan Mortensen and her testimony have been a huge help and a huge part of this investigation. Really? She's drunk and claimed that she couldn't fucking remember shit. So how is her testimony huge when she doesn't even trust what she saw? She is saying that I am not credible because I cannot remember. I think it was a dream. I was drunk. I was this, that, and the other. This is just, again, playing into something. And I don't even want to get into the conversation that I had personally had with Steve Goncalves way back when. Because if you've been here long enough, you'll know. Shares that the sliding glass door did not work or lock properly, and that if someone were to try to break in, that door would be ideal for entrance. Which again would say that whoever did this crime had personal knowledge of that fact. and Steve Goncalves, you know that it didn't work or lock properly. I'm guessing you found that out in the aftermath of the crime. But, you know, we know that we had people coming to that house to fix locks. So why would they not get that fucking lock fixed? Especially when this was a house that people just coming and going willy-nilly, it seems. Do you know what I mean? You'd think they'd want to secure the house, but seemingly not. Let that be a lesson to everybody. If you have a door in your house that doesn't lock, get the fucking locks fixed. Because it seems that if that was done, this could have been a different story altogether. But I still suggest that this is potentially someone who was familiar with the house. Someone who was familiar with the house, knew that door, knew where people were. FBI told Steve Goncalves that possible DNA from the victims could have easily been degraded or contaminated in a car within that 6 weeks for various reasons. Temperature, outside sunlight. So said they would have been more surprised if they had found any DNA. Is he taking the piss with that statement there? That is the most fucking ludicrous statement I've ever said. Trying to basically normalise the fact that there was nothing found in the car. After a crime of this magnitude, he is trying to normalise that there was no DNA found. Does he understand that DNA can be found years down the line, years down the track, that would later pin people to a crime? People who have been found guilty decades after they've done a crime, because technology is now able to pull DNA, and you're trying to normalise saying 6 weeks is enough to get rid of all of the DNA. You weren't ever going to find anything in Bryan Kohberger's car. In fact, it would have been more strange if we'd have found something in the car. That is, I think that will go down as potentially the most fucking stupid statement that has been made since the beginning of this crime. Ludicrous. Now, looking into the cleaning supplies they found in BK's possession during the search, it's possible that some cleaning supplies weren't easy to find over the counter and some require a license. Steve Goncalves believes the vacuum-type object described by Dylan Mortensen was actually something, particularly something from the house, like a victim's shirt, around the K-bar, in an attempt to preserve the evidence on it. BK called in sick roughly 14 hours after, and his little thumbs up arsehole pic was taken, and that it was the only time that he had ever called in sick. Now, I did have somebody send me a picture, and do this yourself. Do this a little bit of homework. Go and have a look at the arsehole thumbs up selfie picture, and pair that with the mugshot, if you like, the arrest mugshot of Bryan Kohberger. It doesn't look like the same person. It literally, and I'm not saying it's not the same person. What I'm trying to say is that picture doesn't look like it was taken within just a few weeks of one another. It looks like it was taken back when Bryan Kohberger was, I don't know, under the influence, shall we say, unless, I think this was put to me, unless they have some sort of beauty therapy stuff and they've done his makeup and give him some fillers around his face and what have you, and done his hair, I don't know. But it's them two, there's a stark sort of difference between them two photographs. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think, especially about the car. Let me know what you think about the car, the DNA in the car. Is that right? That it would have been stranger to have found DNA in Bryan Kohberger's car after this crime. I'll catch you all live later today.